Now, since you're in 7th grade now, you did this in 6th grade, so this is just a review, but for those of you who didn't completely get it or need more practice with it, we're going to make sure that you can do it. A lot of this is going to be working with just numbers, but that's just a review, and you're going to be working more with word problems. So, with adding and subtracting fractions with like denominators, the denominators that are the same. If the denominators are the same, they have to be the same, then you can just add the numerators and keep the denominator. Okay? So, add or subtract the numerators, keep the denominators. And then simplify if necessary. And this, both of these are even, so they can be divided by 2. So divide by 2 and divide by 2, and I get 3/4. Okay, that's my answer. This one, I have to remember it's subtraction. 9 minus 4 is 5, and 11 stays the same. And so 5 is prime, 11 is prime, so I'm simplest form. I'm all good. So that's whenever you have the same denominators. When you don't have the same denominators, you have to get the same denominator. And that's what this says. Find the common denominator. And the way that we do that, we find the least common multiple. And so this is whenever you do the skip counting of the numbers till you get to the same number. Okay? So these numbers, 6 and 8 share 24. 6 and 8 both go to 24. I have to get that number. That's my common denominator. Then I'm going to stack these up, and so I have 5, 6 plus 7, 8. And I do this so that I have plenty of room to change my denominator. And so then I'm going to do the second step, make equivalents. And I'm going to make it equivalent to this denominator of 24. So I have to use scale factor, and I say, how many times does 6 go to 24? Well, it goes by 4. And whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top. 5 times 4 is 20. And then 8 goes to 24 times 3. And 7 times 3 is 21. And I've got a hint for you. The scale factor is the same number of terms you have over here. So this is by 4 and this is by 3. So now I get my total, and I have to look at my sign to remember that I'm adding. So now I add or subtract my numerators. So I'm going to add these up, and I get 41/24. Okay, well that's an improper fraction. So, and I kept my denominator. So now I have to simplify, because I've got to turn this improper fraction into a mixed number. So to do that, I have to divide. And I'm going to leave it in fraction form because I'm dealing with fractions. So 24 goes into 41 one time. And then whenever I do all my subtraction, I get 17. And so it's 17/24. And my denominator is the same. Sometimes I may have to then simplify this number. This time I don't have to because 17 is prime. You're also going to see subtraction problems. And let's work through these. So my first step is to find a common denominator. And so I'm going to do my multiples. 3, 6, 9, 12, 4, 8, 12. 12 is my common denominator. I'm going to stack up my fractions. And I'm going to set them equal to 12. And 4 goes to 12 3 times 3. And 3 times 3 is 9. And 3 goes to 12, 1, 2, 3, 4 times 4. 2 times 4 is 8. Now I have to remember to look at my sign. So now I've found my common denominator. I've made equivalents. Now I've got to add or subtract the numerators. 9 minus 8 is 1. Keep my denominator, 12. And simplify if necessary. 1 can't go any lower. So 1/12 is my answer. You're also going to see these in word problems. It's the same steps. And guys, if you don't, the steps will, with practice, they'll get easier and easier, and you'll stop thinking about step by step. But as you're first doing this, if you're having trouble, have a checklist and go through your checklist and make sure that you're doing all the steps. You're going to see them a lot in word problems. In one Earth year, Jupiter completes about 1/12 of its orbit around the Sun, while Mars completes about 1/2 of its orbit. How much more of its orbit does Mars complete than Jupiter? So now we're going to throw in adding and subtracting mixed numbers. Now, these steps will look very much the same. You're going to find a common denominator, write equivalents, fractions with the common denominator, add or subtract the numerators, keep the denominator, it should say. Then you're going to add or subtract the whole numbers, and then you're going to simplify if necessary. So the only step that it adds is dealing with the whole numbers. So let's see what this looks like. So I have 4 2/3 plus 2 1/6. Well, my first step is to find the common denominator, and I look at 3 and 6, and I go, okay, that's easy, it's 6. And then I say, and I'm just looking at the fractions right now. So now I'm going to make equivalents. 3 times what is 6 times 2, and 2 times 2 is 4. And then 6 times 1 is 6, 1 times 1 is 1. Now I go and say I'm adding, so I add my numerators and I get 5, keep my denominator, which is 6, and then I don't forget to go back and remember to add my whole numbers. 4 plus 2 is 6. So my answer is 6 and 5, 6. And I've gone through my checklist and I've done everything I'm supposed to do. So let's do this one. 14 and 8/14 minus 4 and 3/7. Okay, so first step, find a common denominator again. And look at that, it's 14. I could do my multiples over here, but it would be 14, and it would be 7, 7, 14. So 14 is my least common multiple. And then 14 times 1 is 14. 8 times 1 is 8. And 7 times 2 is 14. And 3 times 2 is 6. Now look at my sign. I'm subtracting. 8 minus 6 is 2. Keep my denominator, 14. Subtract my whole numbers. 14 minus 4 is 10. And then simplify if necessary. Well, both of these are even, so I can divide both by 2 and get 1/7. And so my answer is 10 and 1/7. So you can see it's really the same steps over and over again. Just make sure and not forget about those whole numbers, because an answer of 10 and 1/7 is a big difference from just 1/7. So you're going to see this in word problems, and it says Mr. Riviera purchased 5 2/5 cubic yards of cedar mulch and 3 2/3 cubic yards of compost mulch for his flower beds. How many cubic yards of mulch did Mr. Riviera purchase for his flower beds? So he purchased cedar mulch and compost mulch. It wants to know how much total, so that's going to be adding. So I've got 5 2/5 plus 3 2/3. So I'm going to find my common denominator, and of 3 and 5, and I go 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 5, 10, 15. So it's 15. I put that here. Now I'm going to do my step 2, write equivalent fractions. 5 times 3 is 15. 2 times 3 is 6. And 3 times 5 is 15. And 2 times 5 is 10. I'm adding. So I'm going to add these up. So I get 16 15ths. I add the numerators, keep my denominator. Add my whole numbers. 8, Now, I've got an improper fraction here. So I have to turn this into a mixed number. So this equals 1 and 1/15. Now I have to add that to my whole number. So I'm going to get 9 and 1/15 for my final answer. So whenever I have an improper fraction that's more than 1, and I've got to add that to the whole number. So, and I remembered to add my whole numbers. So go ahead and take a few minutes to do this homework check and log it on your homework form. And then tomorrow we'll check it and make sure that you got them right, and we'll get some more practice.